How's it going, guys? Welcome. It's time for tennis. So I have a racket here that I'm going to set up. It's the Solinco Whiteout. I have the Solinco Blackout in my car outside, which, I shouldn't leave it outside, but I have the Solinco Whiteout and I'm going to set it up. This is a demo racket, but there's something that I always do to customize my grips, and I want to show you guys what that is, and I'll talk a little bit about what my philosophy behind this is. So a while ago, I was kind of researching that and learned that pros have custom grips, and I think that means different things. Sometimes maybe they do something really custom on the handle, like that, to the point where it's almost molded to their hand a bit. And sometimes they maybe have pallets or a grip shape from a different brand of racket on a different brand of racket, right? Like maybe it has a Wilson type of grip on a Yonex type of racket or something like that. So I mean, custom grip can really sort of mean anything, but I was intrigued by the idea that it was uniquely molded to their hand, and I was thinking, how can I make this grip feel better for my hand? And after some research here and there, I got some ideas, but I do this one thing that I don't know if anyone else has done. Maybe somebody has, but there's this idea out there that I did get from the internet that you can basically layer athletic tape to bulge your butt cap, right? And that Gasquet guy is famous for having that ridiculous bulge on his butt cap. That made me think maybe I can use athletic tape or something to basically, and I don't think Gasquet does it that way. I think he has like a weird overwrap on his leather base and then the grip as well. But that you could create a similar type of bulge in other specific areas by doing the same thing. So for a while I did use athletic tape, but now I use aluminum tape. And I use aluminum tape because one, it's harder, and two, it's lighter. And also the adhesive is a little bit stronger. Sometimes I had to work with a specific kind of base grip just for the athletic tape to work, but yeah, I use aluminum tape, and it's actually kind of hard to find good aluminum tape. Some of it just isn't the best quality, and you don't really know until you know, but this stuff by 3M, I forget exactly where I got it. It was probably Lowe's or Home Depot or something like that, so it's nice stuff, but this aluminum tape should be kind of hard. It's not like all flimsy and foldable so much like aluminum foil is, because some aluminum tape is very thin and foil-like. This is like a legitimately thin piece of metal. So it'll bend, but it's got some stiffness to it for sure. So it's malleable, but it has a lot of rigidity to it as well, while still being flexible like aluminum tape should be. So this is the really good stuff. So I'll do this in a second here, but let me talk about what I actually do and what my philosophy behind why I do it is. So the way that I hold my racket, and just having hands, when you grip your racket like this, regardless of how you grip your racket, I was always aware of this little area in my palm that is kind of concaved, right? Like it's sunk in a little bit. This part never really flattens out fully and actually makes full contact with my handle. There's a little area on my handle that I could circle out if I wanted to, that my hand is essentially not contacting the handle. So basically what I would do is I would create a little bit of a bulge or a hill or a bump here that would conform or fill into the shape of my hand. And I really like that because to me it's an indication of exactly how I want to hold my racket once I get it in. It takes a little time to meticulously place these little strips of aluminum tape, which I cut out and then layer carefully and place carefully. Once you get used to that, your racket just feels so right in your hand, and I really like that. And I feel like my grip is a little bit better, like my hand is making more full contact, and it feels more comfortable. And it might even relieve some areas of your hand of pressure points, because you might not know it, but the way that you grip your handle could largely be influenced by the fact that this area in your hand isn't contacting the racket. So maybe you're squeezing it harder than you might, or maybe you're just not gripping it as optimally as you could if the grip mold was more custom fitted to your hand. So you can just do that with aluminum tape. I'm pretty sure that even if I'm not ever going to be, but if I was a pro on the tour, I feel like this is still the way that I would do it. I wouldn't necessarily go to a company like P1 and then squeeze something that would turn into my handle mold or something. I think that I'd want to do it this way because it's very light and it's easy to do myself, and I can move it around if I want to. But if I don't want it to move around, it's not going to move around on its own. This aluminum tape really stays in place. And then on top of that, I put the overgrip on top and then anchor it down. So what I do is I put this on top of the base grip. This is not a leather base grip. This is just what came on this demo racket, so that's what I'm using. But I'm going to put a little bit of aluminum tape here, and I'll show you guys how I do it and what it looks like at the end. But I do this on all of my rackets, and I'm not going to do it as in-depth as I do on some of my rackets because this is a bigger grip size, so I don't have as much room to play around. But I'll show you the basics of what I do. So I cut off a strip about this big, and then I peel it back. So I cut it before I peel it, just because if I cut all these tiny pieces, then I have to peel the backs off. It's annoying. So I have my finger on the adhesive here, which might compromise the adhesive a little bit, but as long as your fingers aren't super oily or something, it's not enough to really affect anything. So you see me, I'm just cutting here. So this is about 1 centimeter wide, this tape, maybe almost 2 centimeters, not quite. And I'm just cutting like 1/2 centimeter strips. Now, there's a lot of ways that you can do this, and the more that you do it, you'll figure out what works best for you, but this is kind of how I get started. And this is just a demo racket. I'm not going to keep it, but I'm so used to doing this that I don't really want to play with a tennis racket where I don't get to do this. So yeah, you can see here that I basically have cut out a bunch of strips like that. And now they're all over my fingers, right? Which is convenient for me. And what I'm going to do, let me bring the camera down a little bit, right? Okay, hi. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a side of the racket. And so the way that this one is gripped, it's already more comfortable for me to hold it this way. So unfortunately, for me, it means like looking down at the throat, it means that the grip and stuff, the grip size on this warranty sticker is going to be facing up. Ideally, if it were my racket, I would switch it around so that, you know, the more aesthetically pleasing side is facing me when I'm holding the racket the way I want to. But that requires the grip starting at a certain point, and that's just not how this one works. So whatever it is for you, spin it around in your hand, which side feels more right, and then just work with that. And if it doesn't matter, then it doesn't matter. But for me, it always matters, and one side feels more right than the other. So yeah, I'm going to start with this side. So this is the side that I want my forehand to be gripping on, and I'm going to fill in that space to basically close the gap between my hand, which is this area, and the handle. So what am I going to do? I'm going to hold the grip the way that I would, and I'm going to look at my hand and try to really be aware of the area, because I can't see it. My hand is covering it, obviously, but I have a sense of where it's happening. I might open my hand and close it a few times to kind of see and zoom in on the area. And I'm going to see that's right about here. All right, so that's where my first strip is going. And now I'm going to do it again and make sure that it looks aligned. And it does. And it's kind of on the lower portion of this. So as you get better at doing this too, you'll learn how to build some of these little hills and bumps up. Maybe you'll make up some of your own techniques and stuff, as I have. Sometimes I roll the tape up and then I stick it down just to create like a larger bump with one application as opposed to a bunch of layered ones. But obviously the more layers you put on, the taller this little hill gets. And now you can start to see there's a little bit of a buildup here, but there's a clear area that I'm focusing on for this grip handle, right? So right here, you can kind of see that's where my hand closes. Yeah. So I have like a pretty extreme semi-Western forehand, and I like to hold it so that my palm, the meat of my palm, is kind of off the racket, but I'm not one of those guys that only has my 3 fingers. Some guys are, but I don't want to be that guy, and that's one of the reasons I have an extended length racket, so I can get that length, but I can still have that grip. That's just what feels right for me. So I want this center point to be a little bit higher, and I want to kind of expand the area or the length in which that this raised part of the grip is happening. So what I'm going to do is I'll put this one up a little bit higher, put this one up a little bit higher, and then this one will overlap with the center, and then I'll do another one at that center point, and that way there's 2 strips right over the center, which raises the center up, and then I'll finish putting the strip down. So I just have these 2 little strips, nothing too crazy. I'm just going to put those on the side to kind of anchor the side down and bring the width of it out a little bit, and then I'm going to hold it and see how it feels in my hand. And that's pretty good. At this point I can see a noticeable difference. Now I'll show you a little trick, and this is a much better done on a leather grip, but you can essentially take this entire chunk of aluminum tape that you've pressed on, and if it feels like it's just slightly not in the right place, you can lift up the whole thing carefully and then reapply it maybe a couple millimeters up or down or sideways or at a different angle or something, because sometimes you will find that you put it down and then after putting a bunch of tape on it, maybe it feels like it's a little bit too far to the right or something like that, and you can actually just lift up the whole thing and move it over a little bit. That's going to work better with some base grips than others, so I don't know what you're working with, but if it's like a worn out synthetic grip, you might only get one shot with this application, but you can also reapply it if it's not sticking that well. You can cut out a few more strips of aluminum tape and tape around that to kind of anchor it down. Or maybe you can use like industrial strength double-sided tape and then back that aluminum strip that you made and reapply it that way, right? You can put the double-sided tape on the back side where the adhesive used to be, and then sort of cut around the border and then flatten that down, and that should stick as well. I've had to do both things before. So yeah, that feels pretty good. I would ideally for myself, I'm probably gonna put a little bit more on, and I'm gonna build it a little bit more this way. But it feels pretty good. And I'm not gonna do the whole video of me doing this entire thing, but I will tell you that I also do a similar thing for the second hand. So I have like a little bulge that I put up here on this side of the grip. I'm probably not gonna do that for the demo because I don't apply very much. And I'm not gonna have this racket forever, but for my final racket, if I do end up getting the Solinco whiteout, then I definitely will do that. But for now, I'm just gonna do it for the forehand side. And I also like to do it under my fingers for the back side of the grip as well, because there's sort of this area you can see where my knuckles are sort of lifted away from the grip handle too. So it's nice to create a little bit of an edge between these 2 points of the flat side of the grip and raise that a little bit, just a little bit. And if you look at the fingers here, you can see that the knuckle indent for the index is a little bit lower than it is for the middle finger and the ring. So they're all positioned a little bit differently, and I position the tape accordingly, actually. And once you take the time and make your grip that customized, it just feels so right in your hand. It really is. It's one of those things that you don't know how nice it is until you know how nice it is. And I don't really think it's one of those things that someone else can do for another person. I think that this is really something that you have to do for yourself, but I highly recommend doing it. It's something I do to all my rackets, and I think it can actually improve the connection that you have with your racket a little bit. And at the end of the day, all this weight that you're adding is extremely minimal because it's aluminum tape, which is extremely light, and it's at the handle, like at the bottom of the handle. So in terms of how it's going to affect swing weight and stuff, also super negligible. And a lot of people like to add a little bit of weight in the handle anyway. So I think it all works out. I think that this is something you should definitely do if you ever find that a grip isn't quite comfortable in your hand. And you can also build up a grip this way too. I've taken grips and built up sections of a grip, just like the entire width of it, by wrapping it around a few times. I've done that at the actual like handle level, not on top of the overgrip. But yeah, this is a good place to put it just because you can access it every time if you need to change your overgrip or something like that. So yeah, that's something that can be nice. And I just wanted to share that because I feel like people ask me about that a lot, at least when I play with people in person. Maybe I mention it or they see this strange bulge on my racket and they ask questions. But yeah, this is a really cool customization. I do it to all my rackets, and I personally would never play with a tennis racket for myself that didn't have something like this for me, because again, it's just such a big difference with how comfortable the racket feels in my hand. I even take it a little bit further, and I usually end up shaving this part of the butt cap down, the corner of it, just a little bit, because it'll wear out my hand a little bit if I don't. And I do the same thing kind of on the other side of this, just where it contacts my hand a little bit uncomfortably. But yeah, that's basically the extent of what I do for my grip molds and customizations. And yeah, I hope that was interesting for you. And if you have any questions about this, let me know. I will try to address them in a comment or possibly another video. All right, well, thanks for watching. That's all for now. If you like the content, please subscribe and comment if you have anything to say, you want to see some future content. I got a lot of cool stuff coming out. And yeah, I strung the Solinco whiteout extended with Witex Quadro Twist. So it's a string that I know very well, and I'll probably do a review on it. I might even do it with this racket and the Solinco blackout because I got it in both. Also, these are 16-19 rackets. I was hitting with the blackout the other day and I broke it in 3 hits. I broke my Solinco Tour Bite 17 gauge. I didn't string it, but it came from the shop like that, and it was new. There were no notches or anything. It was in perfect shape. I broke that in 3 hits, like 3 hitting sessions. So that's one of the things about the less dense string patterns. I just break strings so fast. So that'd be a shame if I like this racket. I just got to live that life where I string my rackets every couple of days or something. So we'll see. We'll see. But Witex Quadro Twist 16 light, it should survive a little bit longer than the 17 gauge stuff. So yeah, that's all for now. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in a future video. Take care.